Welcome, everybody. I have a barbershop panel of men who I am going to ask them some questions. They have no idea what I'm about to ask them, but it's for the ladies and for the gentlemen who are here so that we can elevate, motivate, move past some things that we need to move past. And I'm going to go around the room really quickly and give the guys 30 seconds, 10 seconds to introduce themselves. We'll start with Dr. Oliver T. Reed.
Hey, everybody, I'm Dr. Oliver T. Reed, the writing coach. I'm loving to be here with you again, Trey. You're my sister and a great friend, so I'm happy to discuss whatever we're going to discuss tonight because I have no idea, but I'm happy to do that.
And then we'll go to Bill Davis.
Good evening, everybody. Bill Davis, teacher, just wrote a book, single dad, and look forward to whatever surprises Trey has in store for us.
And none other than Daryl Fletcher.
Greetings and salutations, everyone. Daryl Fletcher, Love Logistics Circle, relationship strategist, communication specialist, and Black equestrian, helping people overcome anxieties, build better communication skills while utilizing horses.
Welcome, everybody. This is the Barbershop Talk, so we're going to get right into this because Dr. Oliver has to skate out on us really quickly, so we're going to get right into this. So I want to ask this question for the women who are listening and men who are listening as well, but women are trying to manifest the love they deserve spiritually and mentally and emotionally and physically. So are we setting our standards too high on the wrong things such as looks, money, and things of that nature? So we can go, whoever wants to answer that, just raise your hand and bring it right on in. Have we set our standards too high? Oh, I want a man 6'2", or I want a man with muscles. Are we doing too much? And that's why we're having problems with relationships and being single for far too long.
All right, so I'm gonna jump on in here because actually that's one of the first chapters of my book, and it's called "You're the Plan I Never Thought of: Disgustingly Beautiful, the Good, Bad, and Ugly of Couples," and it really talks about values versus desires, and so you can't select a lifelong mate based upon just desires. Now, when you talk about the 6'2" and complexion and height and weight and this and that and how much money they make, those are things that are temporal and can and will change. When you select a mate based upon how tall they are, what skin complexion they are, how much money they have in the bank, all those things are temporal and actually can change. He could lose his job. We just came out of a pandemic that no one saw, that no one could have planned for. But at the end of the day, the relationships that worked or stood the test of time are relationships that are anchored in values. So what do values look like? Values look like how do they handle money, not how much money they make. Values look like, are they going to hold your hand while you're sick and not just be running out on you. Values look like is what is important from the aspect of longevity. Just last year my wife broke her leg and she could not walk, and so with her not being able to walk, I literally had to take care of her for weeks because she couldn't. I had to bathe her, because she couldn't get in and out of the shower. She had a cast on her leg, and so all these different things. Are you when you're seeking a mate? How much money they have in the bank or how much money they make is becomes obsolete, because at the end of the day, when my wife fell down and I had to bathe her and I had to make sure she was fed before I went off and did things in my day, how much money I had was irrelevant. How tall I was irrelevant. It was my heart. It was my heart and my value system that gave me the ability to really, pour into her in her time of need. Now, I will say this, those are preferences, and there's nothing wrong with having preferences. But at the end of the day, your preference doesn't have to become your principle. I'm going to leave it right there.
That's good stuff. Dr. Reed, come on. I know you got something to say.
Oh, that's great stuff right there. I mean, I was enjoying that, Daryl. I would say, echoing what Daryl said, from a standpoint that there's a difference between you having those standards. That's fine, but then you have to prioritize them. There's nothing wrong with you liking what you like, doing what you feel, because you're going to be attracted. I always say, you know, if you don't want a booger bear, that's okay. That booger bear may be a booger bear to somebody else, may be somebody else's treasure, but you know what you like.
Right.
But if that's your number one, I would say you need to move that a little bit lower on your priority list and go for those things that Daryl mentioned, like love, and will you be able to lead, and will you be able to understand? Now, where we get messed up with priorities, my priorities is, okay, and I always say this, and I'm a Bible believing guy. When it says bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh, it's talking about the structure. And if you look at how Adam chose Eve, and when he saw her, he said basically, you are bone of my bone, which means I never saw a beautiful skeleton. Every time I see a skeleton, it's just a skeleton. You know, I don't go, oh, this is a great skeleton. But if I was an architect, or if I was an anthropologist, if I was an artifact, what's the person that do the artifacts? They get excited about bones because they know that inside of the bones, they can see the gender, they can get history, they can get the substance. So if you find somebody that's on your list and they are beautiful, make sure you look at their skeleton to see what they're made out of, and look behind that 36, 24, 36, or 6'5" frame or muscular build. Make sure that they got the structure to hold you up. I'm gonna just drop it.
Wow. Come on, Bill. I know you got something.
Well, I would say this, and so earlier when we talked, I was explaining that sadly, we're the least married group in the country, but also have the highest divorce rate in the country. And so the challenges that we face are, and so coming to what Dow said about values, are our values focused on the things that are going to allow the relationship to blossom? Are we going to complement each other? Are we aiming for the same thing? And so I didn't say my intro that I'm a single dad, but I am. And so, you know, if I meet someone who's desiring to have children and I'm not, then clearly we have a mismatch. And so I think that people have to make some decisions about what their priorities are going to be, is what Brother Reed just said, you know, and then make a determination about, you know, how do we collectively bring whatever skill and talent we have together. And the last thing I'll say is this, you know, that sometimes we forget that old adage that people come into your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And so depending upon what it is that you are motivated by this particular person, then you have to make a decision. Is this somebody who's in my life for a reason? Is this person in my life for a season? Is this person in my life for a lifetime? And so if you're choosing a lifetime mate, then clearly your priorities and their priorities should complement each other.
Woo, the brothers is on fire, ladies. Y'all, I hope y'all got I told y'all bring a notebook and a pen, because they're going to tell you some stuff. And I brought them here because they real, raw, and they're going to tell you the truth. So my next question is this. The opposite of what I just asked is, are we playing ourselves because of there's not enough men syndrome in the world? So we see on social media, on media, Nick Cannon having all these babies with these 4 women, and they know. And they know, like, this man just had a baby. He just had a set of twins. And we see this going on, and we see these side chicks. So are we playing ourselves and setting the bar lower just to have a man? Like, are we sticking our head in the sand? Like, a guy told me once that I said, I see something, I say something, because I got my brothers here. They didn't taught me, see something, say something. He said, you know what, sometimes you need to just stick your head in the sand. You know, we were talking about inappropriate DM messages on phones and such as that. And he was like, stick your head in the sand. So have we set our standards too low now that we would share men? So Dr. Breed, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. I'll let Dr. Reed jump in there.
Yeah, I'll say, that's a great question. I think the standards have been lowered, not by the individual, by the culture.
Oh.
Now that's a whole other thing. The culture. So I like to say it like this. The culture said that it's okay. And then I think that women buy into the lie, and also the men that are watching, we buy into the lie. And coming from somebody who's struggled in so many areas to be real and transparent, that culture brings a lot. Broken families bring substitutes.
Woo!
And substitutes leaves you destitute.
Uh-oh.
So what I mean by that, because the role of family or the role of courtship is now it's eroded. You don't even have. I don't even used to be a time you can say, well, you start here and go there. Now it's so eroded where you got women that proposing, you got all different kind of things that's going on and taking the lead and switching the feminine male masculinity, the energy, that it's almost like we're mixed up. So I think the culture accepts us or pushes us to say, hey, there's no boundaries. You can do this, you can do that, whatever comes our way, and we eat the lie. And by eating the lie, we are byproducts of the lie, and we reproduce empty. We're reproducing, but we don't have that connection because we don't have that stability or foundation. So we walk around again with sensationalism, which teaches us to listen to the beat, listen to what everybody's saying, watch the commercial, but don't get the message.
Whoa.
And so I think from that standpoint, we have to kind of back ourselves up and say, hey, we didn't, we just bought into this culture. Not that we lowered our standards, because we had a standard before we started watching TV.
Wow.
And media and social media.
Wow. Come on, Daryl. Are women lowering their standards just to have a man? We sharing dudes, and somebody told me I wasn't gonna have no man because I'm like, listen, I'm just gonna be an old maid and dry up because I ain't sharing no man, and I ain't sticking my head in the sand. I see something like y'all told me. Brother Robbie couldn't be here, but you see something, you say something. So,
well, I would like to is what I have to say actually kind of parallels to what Dr. Reed says, and not just not just from the standpoint of culture, but the standpoint of fantasy. I think many times we buy into a fantasy that everyone has a soulmate. Everybody's supposed to be married. Everybody's supposed to be, waiting on Prince Charming, knight in shining armor. So many women are basically have set themselves up from the standpoint of a fantasy, waiting to be saved by someone, waiting to be swept off their feet by a man. Let's be real here. Not everybody's going to get married. Not everybody's going to have the 2.5 kids. See, these are things that we are told, and then it becomes a subconscious expectation. And because there's a subconscious expectation, you think that is the pattern that your life is supposed to follow. When in actuality, that you might be it might be the not the norm for what you're doing. So here's the thing: life is truly about purpose and fulfillment, but being in a relation does not bring either. The thing about it is just like Dr. Oliver just said, bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh. See, he saw something that helped his vision or his purpose in which where he was going. And the person that was aligned with him, see, before God gave Adam a wife, he gave him a purpose. And it was the wife that helped support that purpose. So here it is, when we talk about, there's a lot of going on of saying what you bring to the table. Guess what, sis? If you don't know how to be supportive and a cheerleader, see, I talk about this before.
Come on now. Come on.
If you can't be a coach and a cheerleader, then you're not the one that should say, hey, I want to be married. Because you have to be able to be a cheerleader, change hats, and then be a coach. Me and my wife just had some issues last week, and nothing major, but she played the role of my cheerleader, saying, hey, I love it when you do X, Y, and Z. But when you see, that's the cheerleader. Go ahead, baby, do that. But then she had to come back, but know how to talk to me in the language of what I understand, and say, play coach. Okay, now, I love how you do this over here, but this right here, A, B, and C, needs a little help. And I have to be open to that as a man. Now, but so when we're talking about lowering the standard, many times people don't even know what a standard is.
Jesus.
When we're talking about relationships, because you trying to be a boss chick, but a boss chick should not, you can be a boss chick when you run in the streets, but now you're in a relationship, and if you want to run from the standpoint of culture and biblical standards, you are not supposed to be you running it, but you're running it under the umbrella of someone else. So if you can't support a vision, and you can't, go about in being that which you have been called to be, then guess what? Unfortunately, you're better off single.
Wow.
Now, you got your needs, sexual or whatever the case may be. Hey, that's on you. But what I'm really saying is, it's not really about lowering standards and raising standards. It's really about understanding what the role is of here. Put if we want to go from a biblical perspective, there's a scripture that says at the head of every woman. It didn't say at the head of every wife. It said at the head of every woman there is a man. So you want to quote scriptures that accommodate you, but you don't want to quote scriptures that will challenge you.
Okay. Oops.
So here it is. We have to understand that when we're talking about a standard, here's the thing about a standard. You don't make the standard.
Mm-hmm.
The standard has been made for you, and there you live up to it. But see, if I make the standard, I'm a human. I can move the standard and it's be here one day and down one day, and here one day. No. Find a source that is the standard, and that's what you live up to. So I'm gonna leave it right there.
Wow. Come on, Bill is single, right? You single? Don't let me be saying stuff that ain't true.
Yes.
So,
Yes, I am single.
from your perspective of seeing things from a single man's lens, do you think that we as women are lowering our standards just to have a man?
And so Trey, and to my brothers, my lens is a little bit different on this question. And so the reason I said it is because it becomes a question of who's setting the standard and what culture are people responding to. And so, as I said to you earlier, I teach African American history. I practice Kwanzaa. And so in the culture, in the people that I roll with, then, a lot of the stuff in popular culture, like stuff you just said about Nick Cannon, has not even on my radar. I would not even have known that Nick Cannon was having babies with all these different women and all that kind of stuff, right? I just don't roll in that arena. And so, now clearly the students in my classes may raise that question. And so then the question for me would be, what is it that you're aspiring for? The question that I raised earlier. Are you aspiring for someone to be in your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime? And so, and I think that as we grow, as we mature, we're going to make choices about what it is that's really vital to us. And so, Brother Dalton, what is our purpose? What is our mission? And when we become clear about what our purpose and our mission is, then we find people who are going to complement our goal for that to happen. And so, so I think that we have to, and not get caught up into whatever the societal standards are. And so when we talked earlier, I was explaining to you that, African-American women, to use the Christian term, have a difficult time being evenly yoked because African-American women graduate college at twice the rate of Black men. And so when we look at, from an educational perspective and financial perspective, that for African-American women, trying to find an African-American male who has similar characteristics to their own is going to be a real challenge. And so African-American women, one of the reasons our divorce rate is so high is because they marry below their social class. And when women marry, the idea in this society is you're supposed to marry up. Women are supposed to marry up. They're supposed to marry someone who's going to help to keep them very secure and all those kind of things. And so it's difficult for a woman to find a guy, unless he's a carpenter, electrician, or something like that, that's been very successful in that particular arena, to find a guy who's going to be able to complement them in that context. And so, if we use the definition that the society at large has set out, then we're always going to run into a problem. If we recreate our own definition, and so one of the principles of Kwanzaa is Kujichagulia, which is self-determination. We need to decide what our standard is. And then we need to decide and try to find people who are going to complement that standard. And when we do, then I think that, the choices, the reality of the relationship would be significantly different. And the last point I'll say is this, that I'm not speaking out of school here. I have family members that have been incarcerated and are incarcerated now. One of the biggest challenges that we face, and that women face, is the fact that there are so many, sadly, in fact, just the other day was the 50th year of the war against drugs. And so too many brothers have been caught up unjustly and put in incarceration. And so from the female perspective, it makes it difficult to find a guy and then to feel like you got to rehabilitate a guy, right? I mean, so talk about that question about standards. So how do we, and Malcolm X could be the standard of somebody who's been incarcerated, right? That was rehabilitated and then found a way to make a significant contribution into the world. I mean, so I think that we need to have a more expansive conversation about our community issues in the context of relationships. And the last point I mentioned to you earlier is the fact that African-American college-educated women are having children less. And so while they've been academically successful, they may be successful in their careers, but if they're having children less, then when are they going? They won't have any heirs to pass their accomplishments on to. And so I think that there's a wider conversation that we need to have about choices that we make. And if we start from the premise about lowering standards and those kind of things without having what is the standard that people are operating from? I mean, because that's not in that question. You don't know what the standard is that people are using, right? So, what is the standard? And I mean, for people who are Muslim, they can have up to 4 wives if they can afford it, right?
Wow.
I mean, so we operate from a certain premise that, it's one-on-one, when in reality, there's some women don't have to lower your standard. I'm comfortable with the fact that this person can be in a relationship with someone else. So I think that we have to really be more open about what it is, but I think if you're going to have that kind of relationship, then it needs to be clear that this is how we're operating, so that then people aren't, harmed emotionally if they find out that, someone is doing something with somebody else and they weren't aware of it. Then, that leads to some of the trauma that we see in the community. And I think that finding a way to end that would be a significant improvement.
Man, I love y'all. These my brothers right here. I'm sorry. I'll be bringing brothers on because listen, I come on when I'm listening to men, I'm not trying to debate. I'm not trying to find no loophole in your answer. I'm listening like, okay. And I'm taking notes to say, let me put that in my Rolodex so I know, because women, we change stuff. We'll change what you just said to, like Daryl said, to make it fit what we want. We'll pick the scriptures that I'm fearfully and wonderfully made, but we won't pick the scripture that a man leads. So we got to be real careful when we listen to the men. So I see women go in and out of relationships, and people will say the man will move on to go to another woman. They'll say he changed for her. Why didn't he change for me? Do men change for women?
Yeah, well, here's the thing about that. I think we as human beings, we change or adapt based upon the conditions that we're placed in. So at the end of the day, there's nothing wrong with adaptation for an environment, because adaptation is a sign of evolution. So, I can't be single and still or I can't be married and still have a single mindset. That's an adaptation. That's at the end of the day, I'm no longer responsible just for me. And so for a person to say, oh, I just want this person to accept me just the way I am, then what you're looking for is a doormat. You're not looking for a relationship, because at the end of the day, in order for things to fuse together, there's typically some form of chemical change. There's an adaptation that takes place. There's a fusion that takes place. So I don't think a wise person would go into a relationship and say, okay, I'm not changing. What has happened is, because I hear it a lot, people say, I lost myself in this relationship. Here's the thing. I don't think you have lost yourself. I don't think you never really knew who you were before you even got into relationship.
I'm leaving.
Because
I'm leaving now. I'm gonna get my hat, my coat, and I'm gonna go.
because at the end of the day, you know, I know who I am. My wife and I have been together for 7 years now, and I know who she is. And I am constantly reevaluating who we are in our relationship. You know, just Friday night, we we get these little date boxes or date. It comes in a box. I thought I had one around here, but it's in our room. But we get a date in the box, and there's a game, there's a musical playlist, and then there is some questions after the game. And so one of the questions in the box that we did just this past Friday was, how does your partner make you better? And as a team member. And the game was like the game that we played, it was like an escape room type game that we played at our hotel room. But at the end of the day, it put us in a team environment, and then we actually had the mindset of a team, and then they asked us a team question. And I bring that up because I realize that as a married man, I can't make all the decisions. As a married man, I need her as just as much she needs me. But if I take the position that, I'm the prize, because see, that's what a lot of people do. They have the mindset that I'm the prize. No, I'm the prize. You know what? We're playing tug of war, and we're putting points in the wrong column. You're putting points in the wrong column from the standpoint of I'm more valuable. No, I'm more valuable. Or you don't deserve me. No, you don't deserve me. Guess what? All that all that was irrelevant when my wife broke her leg.
Wow.
None of that mattered. None of who made the most money didn't matter when she needed me to bring her breakfast in bed. None of that mattered when I was wheeling her back and forth to get x-rays. None of that mattered. What
Wow.
mattered was my heart being available. And we talk a lot about love. But I think love is misleading because we have to teach how to be loyal
Mm.
versus teaching people how to be loved, because I can love something today and then fall out of love with it. I mean, I don't like it no more.
Uh-oh.
But how do I teach this generation, our next generation, to be committed and loyal to something that can't give you anything in return?
Wow.
So at
Wow.
the end of the day, that's where we have to position ourselves in order to be in a worthwhile relationship. And if anybody that is looking or aspiring to be in a relationship, or there's a chapter in my book that says, "Would you date you?"
Oops.
And the question of what you bring to the table. So here it is. You ask the average woman today what you bring to the table. She's going to give you a list of accolades. I graduated such and such in this. I make this amount of money. I did this, and she's gonna give you all her accolades. When the average man is looking for two things: can you be my peace, and can you give me a piece? And if you can't do that, peace.
Wow. Wow. Ladies, did y'all hear that? The average man is looking for two things. I'm not even going to repeat that because you should have been listening. I ain't even playing right now. Come on now.
I'm gonna ask the fellas, am I wrong? Can you be my piece? And can I get a piece?
Uh-oh.
Because at the end of the day, that's what it's really about. I need peace and I need a piece.
Uh-oh. Come on, Dr. Oliver.
Hey, this
Bill. They get. I thought they was gonna get real and rugged up in here. Come on, talk to me, guys.
Hey, let's keep it real.
Keep it real.
Bill. Listen, at the end of the day, we got to make something happen. And if we can't have no peace and I can't get a piece, then peace out.
That's all I got to say. That's all I got to say.
The brothers is throwing it out there. Ladies, listen, I just really want the women to listen, because we twist stuff around. And like you said, Daryl, we give this long laundry list of what I could do this, I could do that, I could do that. And I want the ladies to hear it was 2 things that the men wanted. And we can talk about other stuff. But ladies, did you hear what they just said? And the other 2 gave them a high five. So, Bill, I'm going to switch the question up a little bit.
Okay.
It's still about changing. And my thing is, women get out of relationships, right? And they want this man. They want him to do this, do that. And then he goes to another woman and he changes and he does those things. Did he change? Do men change for a woman? Like, did he change for her? Did he mature? What happened in that instance?
But you said the right word right there. So, if there's an old saying, growth is the only evidence of life.
Oh.
And so at some point, we all should grow. And how we grow and whether the way that we grow. And so Darryl and his wife, hopefully their growth is complementing each other. And so we're all going to grow. We're all going to evolve. We're all going to change. And we need to be in a space in which we're comfortable with how we're growing and changing. And the person that we're with is comfortable with how we're growing and changing. And there's a difference between aging and maturing.
Uh-oh.
There are people that age but don't mature. And at some point, we need to mature.
Say it.
And so at a certain level, if you're in a relationship, there's a lesson for you to learn and there'll be a lesson for you to teach. And so if you're in a relationship, if the lesson is, so I'll give you an example. I was dating a sister. We had a phenomenal relationship, absolutely beautiful sister. And so when we started dating, we didn't have any particular expectations. We just decided to date. Now, she had never been married, didn't have any children. And I told her from the beginning, I said, well, sis, I'm not trying to have any children. So, I think you'd be a phenomenal mom. So I just want to put that on Front Street from the beginning. She said, listen, let's just date. And so we did. And then after a while, after about 2 years, she's ready now. Like, listen, I'm reconsidering. I think I'm really ready to have a child or to adopt a child. And so, since I have, this has been healing. And so what Darryl was saying about peace, at some point, we need the person that's with us who's going to help us to heal, and we can help to heal them as well. And so it was a healing relationship for both of us. And so, but at the end of the day, people want what they want. And so she, was interested in trying, like I told you earlier, I have children, so I'm not, at this stage of my life, I'm not interested in having any children or adopting any children, right? That's just not how I'm flowing right now. But we were honest enough from the beginning to understand what the situation was. So, we're still friends now. It's all beautiful. But I think that the question is, the lesson was that if we're honest at the beginning, then when we have to end, we don't have any tension at the end, because there wasn't any misrepresentation, right? And so everybody was transparent from the jump street. This is what it is. This is how we're going. We're going to. And so I think that as we mature, as we develop, one of the things she said to me, she said, listen, I really felt that I wanted more of a commitment. And I told her, I said, listen, I understood that, but I'm also really clear that since you wanted children, then what level of commitment could I bring to this? Because of the fact that, at some point I anticipated that you were going to go back to this whole thing about wanting children. And my mind is just not going to change on that. So clarifying, I think it was Dallas about values. When we're clear about our values, when we're clear about what it is that the direction that we're intending to go, what our purpose is, then, my purpose now is to teach. My purpose now is to mentor, particularly young men as a single dad. I want to mentor young brothers about this parenting journey and, help them to be, more engaged in this whole process. And so, so I'm not trying to redo what I've already done. Like I'm not trying to that And I mean, hey, if I fell in love with someone who had children, and we decided to make it happen, but I'm not trying to start from infancy and then come up. That's just not what I'm trying to do right now.
I love it.
If I could,
I love the transparency. Hold up, Daryl, but I love the transparency, and I just want the women to understand when a man says, "I don't want any more kids." Again, I'm trying to drill into our ladies' heads. You're not going to change him if that's not what's in his heart, and that's not what in the cards. And this is what I'm understanding that Daryl and Bill were saying, that you can't change somebody that doesn't want to be changed. Go ahead, Daryl.
and if I could kind of shift for a second, and this is no insult to ladies. I'm simply stating facts. Unfortunately, women lie to themselves so much that when a man is really honest with them, they won't believe him. What do I mean by that? Women, fundamentally, y'all lie about pretty much everything. And hear me out. You wear heels, you're really not that tall.
Oh,
You wear a girdle, that's really not your shape.
oh,
You wear makeup, that's really not your skin complexion. You wear lift up you wear push-up bra.
oh.
Your titties don't look like that when we take them off, when we take that bra off. So there is a constant of this fundamentally lying to yourself, that when a man tells you really how he feels, you think, oh, I can change him, because what you're used to doing is you're used to changing your appearance. You're used to changing who you are. You're used to changing your everything about you. So you don't even take him seriously when he tells you, I don't want no kids. And then when the push comes to shove, y'all get the loving and all this type of stuff. You feeling good, he feeling good, and you think, oh shucks, I'm gonna spring some kids on him. And he get mad because, yo, I told you from the get-go, I didn't want any kids. You're used to lying to you.
Oh,
I wasn't lying to you. I was telling you the truth.
wow.
So here it is. It creates a subconscious culture in a woman's head when we're talking about change.
Wow.
Because women change so much. You change your hair. You when you look at a woman's magazine, the women's section is this thick as far as clothing is, and the man section is only this thick, because that is the condition. And here it's not, and I'm not making this an insult or anything, but what this has to be boiled down to is how men think and how women think. The language of a woman and the language of a man.
Wow.
Men are more concrete, women are more abstract.
Wow.
That's why typically women can be more creative. See, a man knows how to construct a house. A woman will decorate a house.
Wow. Wow.
So here it is. When a person tells you who they are, believe
them the first time.
Wow.
And leave it there.
Right. When people show you who they are, believe them the first time.
Yep. Stop
Absolutely.
trying to force a square peg in a round hole. Because he's 6'5", he got a beard. But guess what? His heart is rotten.
Oops. Ladies, I hope that y'all are taking notes, because the brothers is real. I'm gonna ask one more question, because we are ready to our time, and my people and my team about to start tapping the table. But I gotta ask one more question.
Okay.
What makes a man? We always ask the question, what makes a man cheat? What makes a man not cheat? That's what I want to know. I don't want to know what makes you cheat. I want to know what makes you not cheat.
Well, here's what makes a man not cheat. Maturity in maturity, that man's maturity level and that man's ability to be loyal.
Oh, well,
Okay.
thank you.
It's nothing fancy. But here's the thing about what makes a man cheat. Anything.
Oh,
Anything. If a man wants to cheat, he will cheat. You cannot stop a man from cheating. Because here's the thing, at the end of the day, it's up to that man to be loyal. Once again, we can go right back to my first statements. His values. What are his values? Because, see, fundamentally, I can love a whole bunch of people, but I can't be loyal to everyone.
oh,
So here I am, and I'm told what love is, or what love feels like, and what love looks like. And I can have that. Here's the humanity of that. I can have that feeling with multiple people. I can. That's just the reality of the situation. I can have that feeling with this person over here, with this person over here, with that person over here. Oh, shucks. Oh, my gosh. She made me feel amazing. I love that feeling. See, we're falling in love with the feeling, but feelings are indicators. They are not dictators.
oops.
So someone taught me how to feel love, but no one taught me how to be loyal and committed.
Wow.
So it's based upon what will make a man stop cheating or not cheat is his maturity and his values.
Wow.
But why men cheat, the wind blew. Oh shucks. And this is coming from a man in his past marriage struggled with infidelity.
Wow.
So I'm transparent with mine. Yeah, a lot of y'all know my story, but at the end of the day, here it is. What made me stop cheating was my maturity and valuing my values more than my desires.
Wow. Valuing my values more than my desire.
At a certain point, and I agree with that. At a certain point, you just had to decide. There isn't. Like, no one can stop somebody from cheating. At a certain point, you just have to decide that you're not. It's just that simple. And so, so there are women who try to, and men for that matter, who try to stop their significant other from seeing somebody else. But in reality, it's really up to them. But sadly, most people feel like somehow they did something that caused that person to do it. In reality, that's not the case.
Right.
It's just that, the person just decided that, hey, I didn't value this relationship enough not to do it. That's really what it comes down to. Because if you value a relationship enough not to, to say I'm going to be loyal to this person or to this relationship, then you will. If you don't value a relationship enough, then, you're going to do something. I mean, and we live in a society that perpetuates selfishness. And so, people are always looking out for what they want to do as opposed to what's best for the relationship as a whole. And so cheating fundamentally is just about, I want to do what's good for me. If I enjoy having sex with multiple people or whatever, then it may not be good for the relationship, but it's what's good for me. And so since we live in a society that focuses on self as opposed to the collective, right? And so I think we have to think about what the collective thing looks like rather than what the individual situation looks like. When we can get to someone who values the relationship itself. And so I want to do one thing real quick before, because I know that the clock is ticking, and I want to correlate it to your question. I didn't cheat, right? I'm a single dad. I didn't cheat on how I raised my children. I didn't, right? I was loyal. My integrity was phenomenal. And so I think that when people are wondering why people cheat, they have to value something enough not to do it.
Wow.
So I valued raising my children enough not to cheat, not to send them nowhere else, not to have anybody else step in and try to raise them. Whatever it takes to get this done, I'm going to step up and do it. And so when people value that relationship enough, they're going to do it. So this is the cover of my book, Baba and the Crew, True Story of a Single Black Father's Journey to Redemption. It's available on Amazon. I would appreciate anybody that would desire to get the book. My website is up there. You can, check me out. I'd be happy to sign one and send it to you. But I think that at the end of the day, what we value, we cherish.
Wow.
We cherish it enough that we're going to do everything we can do to protect it. And
wow.
so, I'm going to adjust my behavior accordingly to make sure that I am not going to allow what I cherish to be harmed.
Wow.
So when we cherish that relationship, we're going to do everything possible to make sure it stays healthy.
Wow.
And so I don't want anybody to blame themselves or what somebody else's behavior was, because you can't control their behavior. You can only control your own. And so when we realize that point, when we realize that people, sometimes do very selfish things, and if we're in a relationship and cheating is a very selfish behavior, we just have to recognize that's what it is. Do people make mistakes? Absolutely. If it's a pattern, then you know that this person is just concerned with their own well-being and not the integrity of the relationship. And so you just have to make a decision about whether or not that is something that you're comfortable or desiring to do. And so the question that you asked before about people don't understand it, some people divide themselves by the relationships that they have, as opposed to the fact that, listen, because you hear this expression, we have two halves to make a whole. No. It should be two wholes coming together, right? Yes. It shouldn't be that I'm half and you're the other half, and we got two people half coming together, because that's not going to work. We should all be healed as best we can when we enter into the relationship, and not bring the past drama from the relationship before. And I tell women this all the time, it wasn't me. I'm not trying to catch this other brother's heat. And I'm not trying to bring you the heat from whoever I was dating.
Wow.
It wasn't you. And so if I'm not beyond that, then I don't need to be having this conversation with you. If she's not beyond that, she should be having a conversation with me, because women will treat men like a suspect. So, they want to interrogate you, what's your job, boom, 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 boom. And so when women come at me like that, it's nice to meet you, dear. I'm out.
Wow.
I'm not trying to convince them that I'm not the guy that they still got issues with. Oh. And so if that's the case, then hey, when you, and some guys may like being interrogated that way. I'm just not the guy, right? Listen, whatever that is, I didn't have nothing to do with it, right? Wow. And so I'm not trying to have to atone for somebody else's issues. And so that Tyler Perry, why did I get married? And I forgot my man's name. And the woman is giving him all the hell that he didn't have nothing to do with. Like, listen, I had nothing to do with that. So why do I have to catch all that hell? It's like, no. And I'm not bringing, because all of us at some point have had somebody do something to us that was out of order. And so if we have to accept the fact that that's what that person did, right? And if I'm not beyond that, then I need not to be trying to deal with somebody the hell else.
Wow, this has been powerful, and I got to wrap us up. I hate to go. We got to do this again. My team in the background, they like, yo, this right here, if the ladies didn't get nothing today, I feel sorry for them. I feel sorry if the ladies didn't get nothing today. If you didn't take notes on this was helpful, beyond helpful. Daryl, I just want you to tell everybody where they can find you.
Well, you can find me on social media, at all places. Sofa Ranch, SOOFA Ranch, Sofa Ranch. We've combined our coaching business with our love for horses, and it's an awesome thing. So Instagram, sofaranch.com, website, Facebook, Sofa Ranch. So yeah, if you want to learn a little bit more about who we are, what we do, go to SOOFAranch.com, and we'd love to engage and communicate with you as well.
Yeah, stay on fire in the chat with y'all. So I thank you, brothers, for being honest, transparent, and truthful, straight, no chaser, because this is what we need nowadays. We don't need the sugarcoating, because we over here doing too much. Like, we over here trying to change folks and tell folks what to do, and not believing when a man say he don't want no kids. We got to stop all of that.